Tucker Carlson had a guest on to talk about, I swear, this is a conversation about the use of pronouns that people prefer, which turns into a conversation about how the left hates sex and doesn't want babies to be born somehow, and it gets even worse from there. Take a look.
What are the more subtle implications of a declining fertility rate?
Well, most people point to the economy as the driver of the problem. People just aren't having kids because they can't afford it. And I think there's actually a cultural driver going on, Tucker. Really, there's this cultural dogma that's telling little girls that their greatest value in society is to the extent that they can maneuver to monetize their talents and abilities. You saw this over Mother's Day weekend with prominent publications, prominent feminists who were really denigrating motherhood and extolling intentional childlessness. You can see it in the Biden plan to $225 billion to have nationalized daycare to get bodies into the workforce. It's essentially, Tucker, you could say, handmaids of capitalism that's being pushed. When the truth of the matter is, women still want to be mothers, and they're essentially cauterizing their hearts to put off having children, put off having more than one child, to go into the workforce, establish their careers for it first, and they run out of time.
Okay, I apologize. That is Rebecca Heinrichs of the Hudson Institute trying to take the obvious and fair critique that the GOP is being modeled after Gilead and Handmaid's Tale to just flip everything on its head. But we don't have much time, so I want to play the third video for this block so we can combine our commentary of that. It's feminism has ruined women and has trained them to not want kids, and now it's going to get even creepier.
Men and women come together and create new life. Like, the whole thing is repulsive to them. Why is that?
Well, I think it's because it started with the feminist movement that they felt that impaired a woman's future. But I think it also reflects reality, Tucker, that the age when people are getting married, having children, buying a home, buying a house has gone from mid-20s to mid-30s. And our crisis right now is that we're not reproducing ourselves. We're about 1.8 rather than 2.1 or 2. And we're suffering from what? Prolonged adolescence. These children, they have adult bodies, but they have the minds of children. They don't want to grow up. AOC is a good example of a person who's suffering from prolonged adolescence, but they just don't want to take off their training wheels and go out and experience life and its adventures and dangers.
So AOC, I believe at the time that she was elected, the youngest congresswoman in American history, is a prolonged adolescent, the body of an adult, but really a child's mind. She's only fundamentally changed the way the entire United States thinks about climate policy and a number of other things, raising it to the top of our political awareness. But she's basically just a child's brain in an adult's body.
That's why you guys spend 24/7 attacking her, because she's not important, right? If she's just a child, that's why 80% of your programming centers around her. Okay, so, but let's now go to the heart of the issue here. And there was an interesting stew of talking points in there. And there was one in there that was really interesting. So first, you have the standard Fox News stuff. Women, what are you doing? Get back in the kitchen and in the bedroom. Your job is to make babies, you're baby machines, because we need boys. I mean, yeah, I guess you make girls every once in a while too, but that's not important. We're gonna control their bodies too. So before they were like, hey, we don't want you to have choice over your own body in reproductive issues. Now they're going further. No, you must create babies, right? And so, no, I don't want you going to work. Get back at home, but you saw it right there. They're like, we have a fertility problem. If you watch the longer clips of those, Tucker's like obsessed with fertility. By the way, of course, he doesn't mean for all Americans. Let's keep it real. In other segments, they have talked about how white people are having fertility issues, and as a former Congressman King said, we can't reproduce our civilization with other people's babies, okay? And they're particularly concerned about Latino babies in this case because they think they have high fertility rates and white people don't. And so they're saying, no, it's a trick, white people, okay? And now the second part of that, that's 1955, that it reveals their complete hand. They're totally sexist. It's the most sexist thing in the world, that to view women as just basically chattel to produce babies for themselves. And then the second portion of it is, it's totally disconnected from today's reality. Why do you think women are in the workforce? Why do you think like both partners are constantly working? Because you can't make enough money. The wages are so damn low. If you have 2 minimum wage workers in that family and they work the entire year with no days off, congratulations, your family combined, both of you together, made a little over $30,000. Not individually, the whole family. So you want the mom to go and you want them to have a kid and all the expenses of a kid. Now that only the dad's working and he's making $15,000. How the hell are they gonna afford that? They're not having kids because they're being rational. They have no earthly prayer of being able to afford it. And who created that? You created that, Tucker Carlson. Fox News created that. Republicans created that. Lower wages, crush them, crush them, crush them, right? And to this day, you're still arguing against higher wages for American workers. But then comes the really interesting and weird part of it. Handmaids of capitalism? And several times in that segment, both his guest and Tucker Carlson spoke out against capitalism. What in the world is going on at Fox News? They've created some sort of weird chimera.
It's fake populism.
Right, of populism and that's anti-capitalist, while pushing for laws that are uber capitalist, that are massively runaway capitalism, but disguising it as, of all things, to sell it to the Fox News audience as socialism. They're like, don't worry guys, we hate capitalism, go socialism. The real problem is the goddamn capitalists are making the women work. How is that for topsy-turvy?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, this is such an insult to women. They know their policies have failed women, so they're just trying to paint feminism as this boogeyman because they have nothing else to offer. Women, especially women of color, are really struggling economically right now. And if Republicans really cared about fostering the next generation of young women, they would really be advocating for things like paid leave, abortion access, raising the minimum wage. But just this past week, they voted against the Paycheck Fairness Act. So I don't know why they're acting like they don't know why some women are delaying motherhood. It's economic instability, and I think their policies are really what got us here.
Yeah. And by the way, a super fast last point, the weirdo Heritage Foundation guy that they had, he at least acknowledged briefly that they say it's because of $1.7 trillion in student loan debt and the economy's doing really bad. But let's move on and pretend that they're in training wheels. Again, super weird to say that someone's on training wheels when they ran for and primaried out a Democrat and became a congresswoman. But really fast, let's bring up this chart. Here is maybe what you could do if you want people to have more kids. When you ask people why they're having fewer, childcare is too expensive, 64% say. Let's see, they want more time with the children they have, not much you're gonna do about that, but worried about the economy, can't afford more children, waited because of financial instability. Let's see, there's no paid family leave, comes up twice there, global instability. There's a lot of stuff there that in theory, the government could do to help. Look at that, the number one thing, 64% is childcare. Well, why don't we have some sort of system of government childcare? If you want to make sure that people feel free to have all of the babies that you want, well, that's one way that you could do it. But he's not going to engage with that.
I've got to say two last things. One is a comment on that. All the Republicans just voted against childcare. So if you're pro-life and you want people to have more babies, why in the God's green earth would you vote against childcare? You would do that because you don't really care about any of those things. You want to crush the average American and you want the corporations to get everything. So Tucker Carlson's propaganda is now at a different level of devious. He now understands that the right-wing populism also despises multinational corporations that run our lives. So he's now flipping it and helping them by pretending to be against them. The minute he actually advocates for laws that check corporate rule, I'll give him credit, we do it all the time, right? But he doesn't. He loves corporate rule while pretending to be against it. Now, finally, Bridget, I gotta ask you a question. So they made assumptions about AOC's intentions, right? She has said comments before about how she's concerned about having kids for all the same reasons many young women are. And she's also said she was looking forward to having kids, but for the purposes of lying to their audience, they pretended that she was against having kids herself and that it was because of climate change. Now, as you saw in the poll there, I don't know where climate change was, but it wasn't at the very top, right? It was real economic concerns that were at the top. But Bridget, how much agency does it take away from women for these men to be talking on air about what you should do and how you should be having babies, And I cannot understand Republican women. I just cannot understand them that look at that and go, yeah, oh yeah, I can't wait for these guys, these old creepy guys to control my body.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It is so insulting and infantilizing. The way they talk about AOC just in general is disgusting. But first they talk about her like she's some sort of girl, like the body of a woman and a girl's head, and then they go on to infantilize her, talking about what she should be doing with her body. These are people who their entire mission in life is to control women in our bodies and make decisions that should be ours on our behalf. And yeah, it's completely infantilizing and very insulting. I think any woman, whether you decide to have children or not, whether you're a parent or not, should hear this and be really insulted by the way that these old white men are talking about our bodies and what we should and should not do with them.
Yeah, and wait till they get a load of Bridget's podcast. It's No Girls on the Internet. So when Tucker Carlson gets a load of that, he's definitely doing a story. We knew it. There's less babies because of Bridget. She says there's no girls on the internet. And you work for Ultraviolet, which is a feminist group. Oh my God, they're gonna have a field day with that. Good luck with that. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.